we'll start with the um, what U.S. lacrosse got wrong, in my opinion, on the shin guard rule for the girls. Okay, and so I wanted to just avoid this because a lot of you guys know my take on this already, and so I don't want to spend too much time on it. But I do want to kind of reiterate some concepts that a lot of people I think are forgetting. Okay, so I basically wore out one of our parents in our Facebook group because I was trying to have a bit of a conversation because I wanted to walk people through this discussion. So those of you listening to me now, like if you have a goalie and you're in an area and the shin guard discussion comes up, or we had people comment like, oh, my daughter hates wearing shin guards, and so she's excited about this, and I'm like, you know your daughter probably wears like short shorts too, and that to me, I've got a Facebook, or I've got a graphic I'm going to put up on Instagram and Facebook that basically says like, I can tell how serious you are about being a really good goalie by the length of your shorts. And so this just blows my mind because I look at a lot of goalies and I go like, you're not trying to stop balls. You are trying to fit an image, a view that is stuck in kind of the culture of field lacrosse, which I can't stand. And you don't. And I'm probably the most vocal about this that I know, because everybody else is kind of rehashing the same stuff, and they'll say like, "Oh, it's okay. Like if they want to wear whatever you wear what you're comfortable with." I'm like, no, that's not the statement to be said here. The statement is like, if your goalie wants to be a really good lacrosse goalie, and you agree that it takes like thousands of repetitions to be world class at something, then you take your goalie out today and you say, all right, today and you agree with me that uh that you agree with me that um the 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 ball at some point comes from too fast, from too close to get your stick on it, that you have to get some other part of your body on it, whatever that is. Left elbow, right testicle, left ovary, kneecap, shin guard, foot, whatever. Okay, great. Then we're going to train that save. Like if we want to be world class at this position, we've got to train that save. And so what I told his dad was like, your daughter is not going to be as good as she could be. And I said, all I need is a half hour and a bucket of balls, and I'll prove it to you. Which he took, and this is kind of funny because I'm like the exact opposite of this. He took it as like, what, are you just going to beat up my daughter and just and beat her out of the game? And that's funny because this dad doesn't know me and my take on this. All right. So I'm actually the opposite of that. What I want, so I believe that with progression, everything is possible. And what a lot of coaches do, which I don't believe is coaching, and I'll talk about this a lot tonight in our other topics, is this idea that if a coach's attitude towards your goalie is that they need to survive, that's not coaching, right? We all know that there's some kids, yes, that are just not cut out to be a goalie, just like they're not cut out to be like a football player, or they don't like to head balls in soccer or whatever. But the point is that if a coach just says like, well, too bad for you, that's not coaching. Because I believe coaching is about taking an athlete wherever they're at whatever level of lacrosse they play, no matter what their training age is, no matter what their psychological age is, or their biological age, or their chronological age, if they like this game and they want to get better, our responsibility as a coach and anybody around that is to help get them, one, to keep them in, and two, to keep them going. Right? That's the deal. Okay, that's the deal. Joel Rose, yes, lax chicks as opposed to lax bros. Yeah, I think that's where we're going here. That's a good one though. That's a very good comment. Um, but the idea here is that this whole U.S. lacrosse thing, this saying that women's goalie, like high school goalies, don't have to wear shin guards, they're going backwards, and they're doing nothing to further the development of the game, in my opinion. So everybody thinks I'm really biased on this, and I don't believe that I am, even though I'm talking about lacrosse goalies. This position that I have on this, I believe is valid. And the position is this: when goalies are better, shooters get better. When shooters get better, teams get better. When teams get better, programs get better. And when programs get better, the whole sport gets better, right? When you take out the goalie, so let's say a program has 10 goalies, okay? And you have this culture of no gear, okay? No gear. And so now what ends up happening? Well, people go like, "Oh, I don't have to wear the gear. I'm not going to wear it." No other sport has this problem. Soccer doesn't have this problem. Ice hockey doesn't have this problem. Field hockey doesn't have this problem. Handball doesn't have this problem. Water polo doesn't have this problem. The idea is that in lacrosse, because we keep we keep allowing um, kids to basically look like midfielders in the cage, then what that opens us up to is like, let's say a program has 10 goalies and only 5 of them are able to get good enough in the sport to continue. Well, you've lost 50% of your goalies, right? And that to me sucks a large portion of the life out of your program. Whereas if you had 10 kids, regardless of ability, at least they're all happy and they want to be there. Then guess what's going to happen? You're going to have more kids in the position. Why? Because they're just going to feel good about themselves. They're going to feel safe. They're going to feel positive. And because now another comment we had in the group this week was like, "Oh, just give them a break. Kids just kids just will take equipment and scale it down to whatever size they can get away with." And that's to me is like that's the opposite of where I'm going with this. The rule in lacrosse, okay, and just to a big shout out to Ben Stone down in Australia who reminded me of this a couple weeks ago, is that in field lacrosse, in the women's game specifically, girls don't have to wear gloves. Okay? That's a rule. And so when people say like, "Oh, wearing shin guards makes me slow," well, then why is everyone wearing a glove now? Why are the girls wearing gloves now? And I always ask that to the girls that I coach. I'm like, "Okay, well, just for a fun little conversation, how come you're wearing gloves?" Okay. Oh, well, because they protect my hands. How come you're not wearing shin guards? Oh, they make me slow. And usually I follow up with that. You know how stupid that just sounded, right? Because the bottom line here is equipment is a tool, and I know a lot of you guys have heard me say that. I'm just going to say it again. Equipment is a tool, and it's a tool that helps us make more saves, but it's a tool that allows your goalie to be world class. Just like we just got off watching the Olympics here, and athletes like gymnasts, they jump into foam pits, right? They don't jump on a concrete floors. No one says, "Hey, suck it up, sister. You got to jump on a hard concrete." BMX riders, right? BMX riders do tricks and jump on padded ramps, land on padded ramps. Sometimes those ramps are inflatable, so they're easy to transport. Okay. Divers. Here's one for you. Divers, if you've ever noticed, like the water is like kind of they have a hose kind of shooting water into the pool. It does two things. One, it allows them to visually see where the water is. But the second thing that it does is it softens the surface tension so that a diver, when they go in, they don't have to withstand so much force because literally it's like jumping into concrete. Okay. And you see a lot of divers, they have their wristband because that's a tremendous amount of force in their wrist when they land. So there's no like even within some of those sports, there's a culture of like, oh, why do you get wrist tapes? Blah blah blah. You know, there's always going to be that. But the point is that this lacrosse rule, this U.S. lacrosse approach, really pisses me off because one of the things that they said in their statement was that this equipment is still recommended for goalies. Okay, but with no injury data and no safety standard in place, the committee opted to align with both the collegiate rule and the boys' rules. I want to flip that around and go, that is the biggest pile of BS I think I've ever heard. You can't have injury data if you're not capturing it, right? How many times has your goalie been hit in the leg enough or somewhere enough where they couldn't take the next rep? That to me that's the defining line. Okay. That's the defining line is if your goalie makes a save, okay. And we all agree that in games balls don't feel as painful as they do in practice. I call it pain with a purpose. But the idea is that when an athlete in any sport is injured enough to miss the next rep, we've failed them as a coach, in my opinion. Okay. Now, granted, we can't protect everything. Like, I was interviewed by the New York Times when we had an athlete die in the sport of luge at the Vancouver Olympics. For those of you guys who remember that, I was right there. And, I told the New York Times, I'm like, we can't wrap our athletes in cotton balls and say, hey, isn't this great? No, we wouldn't watch it. We wouldn't be interested in that. We want part of that. We want that danger, right? Um, there's a portion of the population that when Simone Biles talked about having the twisties at the Olympics, people were like, "Hey, I wonder what that would look like seeing her land on her head." Right? That's there. As cruel as that is, that there's a portion of people who are there. That's why we watch sport. That's why we do this. We want the risk. And as goalies, some of us, are like addicted to that risk, and I get it. But the for all of you that have goalies, and Jason Edwards, I see you checking right now. And Jason, I'm reading your post actually off our group right now. The idea is like, he joked about his daughter saying the "I told you so." This is not about an "I told you so." This is all about U.S. lacrosse lacking the balls with a capital B. All right, to basically do the right thing. Okay. Now, the interesting thing that's happened in the last couple of weeks and is U.S. Lacrosse hired a guy named Jason Vescovi. He's actually from New Jersey. I met him when he was working as sports science guy for Tennis Canada, and I was doing the strength and conditioning portion for a tennis camp out here in Alberta, and he was the sports science guys for Tennis Canada. And I'd be curious to get in touch with him and go, "Yo, this needs to change because this is a problem." I really believe that this is like concussions in football, that US lacrosse is just passing off again the responsibility that, we need an athlete to go like, "Oh yeah, I've got, vein issues because I've been hitting the legs too much." Right. But seriously, it's like if your goalie's wearing like short shorts and no shin guards, and they're not using their feet or their legs or their knees to make saves, they're not going to be the best goalie they can be. And they're just going to perpetuate this. Lacrosse goalies are getting worse, not better. Like, as the game has progressed, and this is a fact, like this is just a solid fact, that as the game of lacrosse has gotten faster, and in the last 5 years it's gotten ridiculously fast on the girls' side, goalies have not caught up. Okay, goalies have not caught up. And when you look at what's that? What's this now on my screen? Why does this always happen? Um, hmm. Sorry, guys, I'm losing my train of thought because my face is now gone. What's going on here? Hello? Hello? Hopefully that'll go away. That's so weird. Why does that happen? Um, sorry, now I'm all distracted. I was lost my train of thought. Um, anywho, all right, I'll just capture that and get rid of that. That's weird. Why is that doing that? Let me go back to this. Hang tight, everybody. Where did my face go? Yeah, you're gonna look fine on Instagram. It's just coming up on my StreamYard thing here. Let's try this for a second. Come back. Nope. All right. Well, maybe I'll move over here and maybe you guys can see me now. Over here. All right. I don't know why that's on there. That's pissing me off. But anyway, I just want to finish this thought. What I want from all the parents listening to me right now, okay, is you've got to look at this as your athletes, okay? Your athlete needs to be protected, okay? Not just to be safe, like your kid's soft or something like that. Basically, your your athlete, I want you to think bigger for your goalie. I want you to think like, hey, my goalie is going to change this game. Okay, that's my slogan. Changing the game one goalie at a time. Okay, that's the deal. All right, changing the game one goalie at a time. And so this starts with your goalie in your backyard, because I believe that goalies are made in the backyard. I'm still trying to move to get out of this thing. This is so weird. This pissed me off. All right. But I want you to think bigger. Okay. I want you to think like, okay, my goalie is not just going to play collegiate lacrosse, but they're going to change the game. They're going to be the best goalie the sport has seen. And when you think like that, then what happens is you look at protection completely differently. Okay, you look at it completely in a different way. You look at it as a tool, not that your goalie is soft or they don't look right. That your goalie is going to learn they're going to be more protected over thousands of repetitions. Okay. So they can make more saves. So when I see a goalie like get lit up on Instagram on some off stick low shot that goes by them and they make some half hearted attempt, even a good looking like kick save with their foot to the ball and they miss it, I know that that goalie is not, they haven't had enough reps to make that save. Right. And so that comes up all the time. So people were joking about like the baiting video that popped up on Instagram. Somebody just posted in the group. Um, they commented on that. I'm going to try to get rid of that. Let me just close this window. Boom. Well, that's scary. That's so weird. Why is that coming up? That is so strange. All right, I'm going to close this. Boom. Hey, okay, that worked. Now I just can't see any of my notes. But when I see goalies missing saves, my first question that I ask as a goalie coach is like, do they have they made enough of those saves? So especially for the girls, right? Especially for the girls, anything down low. If I see a goalie who doesn't drop to their knees or doesn't stick out a foot with authority, I know that goalie just hasn't trained it enough. And when you think about like world class athletes, and I asked this for that dad that I totally wore out on our Facebook group, I was trying to walk him through this conversation. Like, hey, do you agree that it takes thousands of reps to be world class? And yeah, that's a yes. Okay, well then let's go out tomorrow and let's start working on those thousands of repetitions with your goalie. All right. So everybody agrees that if we can't get our stick to the ball and we got to get our leg there or elbow there or whatever, well, how are you going to train that? Okay, off stick hip. Let's use that as an example for the boys and the girls. Off stick hip. Can't get the head of the stick there. What can you get there? Well, the answer is your bottom hand. Okay, your bottom hand. Well, when was the last time you went out to practice and worked on like 100 reps to basically punch that with your glove, as opposed to taking that out of the way and getting your stick head there, right? I challenge everybody to go do that, right? And post the video online. Show me your goalie working on off stick, like hip high shots with their bottom hand. What'll happen is you'll try it. You'll try it for like, three balls. It'll feel really weird. And your goalie will be like, I'm not going to do that. It feels better if I try to get my stick there. Okay. Well, how many of the saves did you make? All right. Train it. Spend enough time to realize what you can do and what you can't do. The same goes for being protected, like on the legs, football pants, knee pads, baseball shin guards. If I take an elite goalie, and this is where US lacrosse totally missed this, in my opinion. If I take every elite goalie in their age group from the PLL on down to like 2030 grad year, if I throw shin guards on a goalie at those, they're going to feel heavy. They're going to feel heavy, right? They're going to feel like, oh, but they're not going to have any real data that proves how much it slows them down, right? If at all. And now I'll share with you a really weird story that you guys can't believe. When I was in the Olympics, okay, when I was training for the Olympics, I used to pick up like any odd job I could find when I was home, okay? And one of the jobs I picked up was this weird little, like, they paid me like $50 an hour. And this was back in like the 90s when that was like a lot of money. I got taken to this. I went to this facility. It was like this office in the top of this building in Duxbury, Massachusetts, and in there they had this wooden replica of a military helicopter. Okay, and the deal was that I had to sit in the seat, and they had all these switches like drilled into this plywood. This they had the switches above. Anybody who flies, there's like switches above you. There's switches all around you, and so what they did was that they would a switch would light up, and I would have to reach and switch it. And then what I would do is I would try on a shirt, like a long sleeve shirt or like some sort of undershirt that was going to go underneath the flight suit of the pilot of a helicopter pilot. And so what they were doing was they were testing the difference in time that it would take me to reach from where I would be normally to a switch wearing different layers of equipment. And what I learned from this was that there was really no negligible difference at all. It was in the beyond, it was the tens of thousands of a second. It was negligible. Okay. Um, Now I'm sure if you're like firing a missile out of a Black Hawk helicopter, that a a hundred, a tens, whatever, hundred thousands, whatever, it makes a difference, right? But for your goalie, that's not making a difference. Okay. So when people say, "Oh, it makes me slow," I'm like, bullshit with a capital B, right? Like it's just your athlete has not spent enough time to know. And so that's why I will post videos of a baseball catcher making some crazy catch and then sprinting to catch the foul ball because I guarantee you that catcher can outsprint your goalie going to an end line, right? I can guarantee you that catcher can outsprint your goalie running up the sideline. And yeah, she can't score, but still, she could probably chase her down. Why? Because she's trained for it. And what I hate about our sport is that we have a very wealthy sport and we have so many people spending money on t-shirts and hoodies and chrome helmets and titanium masks and the latest head and the latest string job. Yet they're not willing to put in the time, effort, and energy to realize what strength training is about and what wearing extra equipment will help them with. And it drives me it really bores me to no end. So I challenge you to take your goalie out and test it and try it, and see, and not fall prey to the fact when your 10-year-old says, "Oh, it makes me slow." Your 10-year-old doesn't know, as like my grandmother used to say, their ass from their elbow, right? So don't fall into that. Okay. Don't fall into that. Be the adult in the room and go, you know what? From a performance standpoint, looking at other sports and how protection is used, you could probably benefit from spending a little bit more time doing this. Well, why? Because we can get thousands of repetitions in you making that save before you tap out because you've got a bruise in your ankle or your shin or your thigh or your inner thigh, right? Or you just got stung so bad that you need a break, right? Like there's that too. Now, I'm not the one that like there's people that go like, "Oh, balls break legs." I don't agree with that, right? I don't see any balls like flying through the shins of 10-year-olds. I don't see that, or even PLL goalies. I'm not that type in that type of exaggeration. I don't believe it. There's another one that I can't remember right now, but people are like, "Oh yeah," So yeah. So anyway, um, I'm when we have elite goalies in this sport who talk about having surgery to place broken blood vessels and things like that, I think of all the reps that they missed, right? And that is further proof to my argument that we have not seen the best goalies play this sport. And the best goalie that we're going to see play this sport is in your backyard if you don't fall prey to the local culture of lacrosse and all that BS that goes, "Oh, you shouldn't wear shin guards or you shouldn't pad up or any of that stuff." Okay. And US lacrosse completely pooch this one, right? By saying that, "Oh, we're going to put the women's shin guard rules in line with the boys and the college rules." No, what they should have done was manned up and womaned up and said, "We've got to get the high school boys and the college rules to meet a better standard," right? And not cop out by saying like, "Oh, we don't have some safety standard or injury data." Really? Let's take all those people in that board meeting and let's all whack them in the shin. Let's all line them up in the boardroom where they made this decision and shoot balls at their shins or their knee or their elbow or their like whatever and see what they would have done with this rule because they totally crapped out on this and it pisses me off. Okay. So if that makes sense to you, um, we got some good comments here. I think this is Bob McGee, right? Our club provides the goalie gear, pants, throat guard, chest protector, and shin guards. Excellent. Ben Stone, it's utter nonsense. Thank you, Ben. That's totally true. Suzanne in Florida. Hello from sunny Florida. Jason Edwards made it. Alex, I don't know how to pronounce your name. Fagoyer. That's cool. Same with our club. Your bleeding face is off. Well, okay. So I think that would have been a fun board meeting if we had done that and just got them all lined up because it just drives me nuts. Okay. So I'm going to talk about this a little bit more on the other topics tonight, but just remember, like everything's possible with progression. And and what I mean by that is I had a strength coach that taught me this years ago. He goes, if I take a 10-pound plate and I place it on your foot, not a problem. If I take a 10-pound plate and I drop it on your foot, we have a problem. And that's what happens to a lot of lacrosse goalies is they get in the game. They like this position. They like the sport. They're in the cage. They're like enjoying, they're out there with their buddies. And then some Lord and lady douchebag says, oh, you don't need shin guards to make you slow, and they get hurt and they don't want to play again. And then what ends up happening? You lose a goalie. And when you lose a goalie, guess what happens? Your shooters get worse. And when your shooters get worse, your program gets worse, or your team gets worse. And when your team gets worse, your programming gets worse. Nobody wants to play for your program. And when your program gets like that, nobody wants to play for you at all. And all those kids that had the chance to play lacrosse all go away, right? Or they're looking for another club. And part of those people that now have to look for another club are like, it's too much work. I'm not going to do it. It affects the game from the bottom up. Okay. And these decisions from the top down are ruining a sport because people think like, oh, well, it's the fastest growing sport in the United States. I'm like, no, it's not. It's soccer. All right. It's soccer. Why soccer? Because it's cheaper. Right. And it's easier to play. And we have more immigrants than ever that want to play a sport. Soccer's their thing. Okay. Joel Rose, too many kids have brought up in Loxborough land and Lax Chicks land, let's add that, and don't know what they don't know, which means ultimately my kid will eat their weak ass lunch. um, yes, and that is true. Is this Bob McGee? Is that you? All that needs to happen, sadly, is for one goalie to lose a limb due to a compartment syndrome injury and because of ignorance. Yeah. Bob, who was that? I can't see, unfortunately, because I had to close my page because it was coming up on my page. But unfortunately, yeah, that's the like, I don't wish ill will on anybody, but that's what's going to have to happen. And but also, that's the most extreme example. But to me, the other example is the micro stuff that eats away at a kid, all the way into this goes into high school and college, guys. This isn't just like your 10-year-old lacrosse goalie problem. This is a problem that goes all the way through. And like, last season, I was in contact with three sets of parents who had Division I women's goalies who basically crapped out of crapped is like basically they opted out of playing because they're like, I don't need this. One dealt with concussions, the other one just dealt with getting beat up in practice. Yeah, now that happens in other sports too. It happens in hockey. It happens in lacrosse. Everybody's tolerance it's very subjective, but it just doesn't have to happen in my book. With good coaching, it doesn't happen. Um, um, all right. So yeah. Okay. No, I will, but truth. Okay. I'm not sure who that is. Anyway, sorry guys, I can't get my other page up. All right. So if that made sense to you, do me a favor, hit the like button, hit the hearts. When this comes out on YouTube and Facebook and all that stuff, and the podcast episode, do me a favor and share it with someone who needs to hear it. Because the only way this is going to change is when all the parents who listen to me finally go, enough is enough. And like, for those of you here who have programs and you're running programs, just make it a rule. Just make it a rule, and just say goalies got to be protected. And just and come up with, if you want help, I'll help you. But, like, just make it a rule so there's no question, right? There's no question, because no other sport has this problem. Okay. Just field lacrosse, in my opinion. Okay. And if you think I'm wrong, send me an email, coach@lacrossegoalietips.com. All right. All right, guys, thanks for watching, and thanks for listening wherever you are. Do me a favor, hit the like button if you like this, and be sure to subscribe if you haven't already. When you're ready, head on over to lacrossegoalieuniversity.com/coaching so I can work with you and your goalie. And while you're at it, check out athletespecific.com to learn more about mental performance and high performance. You may not know this, but I work with athletes in a variety of sports. Lacrosse is my love, but man, I love athletes and the families who support them. So head on over to athletespecific.com, check it out. I'll see you in the next video. Cheers.